In 2 months, we have a chance to restore some sanity in our politics.
We have the chance to flip the House of Representatives and make sure there are real checks and balances in Washington.
Former President Obama headlining a rally in California earlier today for 7 Democratic congressional candidates. He and President Trump have been stumping for their candidates ahead of the midterms, now less than 2 months away, right? Now, look at that, 60 days. The president's recent low approval ratings and a blistering anonymous attack from within the White House could make the fight for Congress more competitive. Trump plans to hit the campaign trail next week with stops in Missouri and Mississippi. Former President Obama is expected to campaign in Ohio, Illinois, and Pennsylvania this month. To discuss this, let's bring in MSNBC contributor and Republican strategist Susan Del Percio. We also have Democratic strategist and HuffPost contributor Michael Starr Hopkins. So, Susan, you know, when we lay out those maps, right, you can see what the approach is here. And you see that President Trump is still desired on the road, number one, on the right. On the left, you have the desire to see the former president, Barack Obama, also on the road. Who's going to be better at this net?
Well, it all depends on the election. We can decide that after the elections in November.
Too, yeah.
But, there's interesting when you show that map. Donald Trump's going into red states where he is liked.
Right.
And Barack Obama, whether it was in California today, the area in California he was in today, or going into Pennsylvania or Ohio, those are places where there's a lot of independent voters and potential swing voters, Republican, to either stay home or go Democrat because they're so frustrated with the president. So it's an interesting strategic move on President Obama's part. And let's not forget, he's making these visits to those areas a week after he gave a eulogy for Senator John McCain, a Republican. So I think he has a lot of bandwidth to use right now to get that message and appeal to independent voters and maybe some Republican women who are really just disgusted by Donald Trump.
Yeah, timing is what you're saying, timing. I'm going to play this soundbite, if I can, and then we'll get to you, Michael. This is President Obama, former President Obama, talking about and touching on an issue, moral, ethical, on Friday, moral, ethical, as well as related to civil human rights. Let's listen to this.
We're supposed to stand up to discrimination. And we're sure as heck supposed to stand up clearly and unequivocally to Nazi sympathizers. How hard can that be, saying that Nazis are bad?
So, Michael, will this move the needle, and by how much? This sort of messaging to the base and those who might be swingable.
Yeah, look, that's what the President of the United States should sound like. And I think the juxtaposition between Barack Obama and Donald Trump couldn't be more startling. On one side, you have Barack Obama, a man who has spoken to our better angels and talked about the ties that bind us and unifying the country. And on the other side, you have Donald Trump, a president and a candidate who has been a moral failure and has done the whataboutism when it comes to the alt-right and Nazis. And so I think that President Obama is going to be a really good campaign surrogate in places like Georgia and Florida, where we're trying to turn out more African-American voters. And I think he's going to be really good, like Susan said, with a lot of Republican women who are sick of the divisive rhetoric and sick of the attack on women's rights. So, I think it's going to have to be surgically used, but I think that President Obama is going to be a great surrogate come midterms.
And he's back in the places, that Midwestern firewall that we've talked about for 2 elections, and then the last election where it didn't work so well. He's also there, too. But what's at stake here, right, Susan Del Percio? The Cook report, political report says 39 Republican seats are toss-ups at the moment. You know these numbers. Real Clear Politics has 9 Senate seats as toss-ups as well. I was just in Tennessee yesterday and the day before. It is close there, Susan Del Percio, and the messaging is, do you vote for the letter? This is what I heard. Or do you vote for the person?
Well, yes, but there's also one other thing when you start looking at these House seats that are toss-ups. Republicans basically have all the voters they're going to get, so they have to just increase the turnout more and more. Democrats that we're seeing this season, yes, they're typically, the history is to have lower voter turnout, but they're prospecting for more new voters. There's a lot of places Democrats can pick up new voters.
Does Barack Obama being out there get those new voters?
Well, I mean, I think that's what he's trying to do. The question is, does he motivate those folks in the hall today, you know, it was 800 people, or yesterday at the college, to really go out and take action? Are they going to register people? Are they going to knock on doors and do canvassing? If they can find new voters, even, and when I say new voters, just people who typically don't vote in off years, that is going to be the difference, I think, when we look at the turnout. Because when you look at the primaries in Florida, New York, and in Massachusetts, where there were such surprise victories in those Democratic primaries, the people tended to get the people who we thought would win got the votes that they expected, the number of votes. It's just that these other challengers brought out all these new people and just really changed the landscape.
When we talk about oldies but goodies, I just want to get to this, Michael, and you can, of course, comment on what you just said. I wanted to add something more to the conversation. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, as you know, hitting the road for Bob Menendez, and one has to ask, you know, given her past, is she going to have the same efficacy that former President Obama might have?
I got to say, that's going to be an interesting. I think that's going to be an interesting pairing, having Senator Clinton and Bob Menendez together. But, you know, Hillary Clinton does still get an audience, and I think she's got every right to go out and make sure that Democrats are elected. I think that one thing we're dealing with, especially in Georgia and Florida, the historic nature of these elections. I mean, we have Sean Shaw, who is running to be the first black attorney general in the history of Florida. You have Andrew Gillum. You've got Stacey Abrams. And I think that we can't look past the historic nature and the changing demographics across this country. And I think that that's something that when you have President Obama out there talking about, that it goes back to that 2008 and 2012 election. And I think that plays really well, too.
You know, as part of this, Susan, that might play well, and we were reporting on this over the last week on NBCNews.com, that the number of women, 100, right, that are now moving into the general. Hillary Clinton also going to be hitting the trail for women that are Democrats and trying to get them elected. How will that resonate, you believe?
Well, Hillary Clinton really needs to be used as a surgical fundraising tool. That's all about she can offer. When you talk about helping out Menendez in New Jersey, who just came out of a huge investigation, and yes, he was cleared on the charges, but he really is in bad shape against a Republican. They're going to have to spend a ton of money there. Having Hillary Clinton there is just only going to help the Republican in that state as far as turnout goes. As far as helping Hillary Clinton helping other women, I think going into some areas where she could raise a lot of money for them will be very helpful. But she is the wrong face and voice for the Democrats to use right now. They'd be much better off using President Obama. Yeah,
another takeaway, I guess, from the conversation between you and Michael, surgical, right? Specific, local.
Absolutely.
Susan Del Percio, Michael Starr, Hopkins, thank you. Coming up, why a top